Hi everyone, Kathleen here again. It is my hope that you're doing well, you are keeping safe, and that you had a nice Sunday. Now, today I want to talk about the relationship between China and Africa. Fellow Africans, the relationship between China and Africa has not been a helped one. All through, this relationship has been tipped in a way that the balance of power favors China at the expense of Africans. The respect, the dignity, and the warm welcome with which we have always treated the Chinese citizens living in the African soils has not been the same respect, dignity, and welcome that is accorded to our brothers and sisters living in China. The recent wave of accusations of Africans as agents of COVID-19 in China, the evictions of Africans from their premises in China, the discrimination of Africans in Chinese hotels and service shops and so forth, the physical violence and brutality that is meted by Chinese citizens on our African brothers and sisters in China reveals the undignified and disrespectful treatment of our African people by the Chinese citizens and the Chinese government. It beats logic that Chinese people are accusing Africans as agents of COVID-19 when the whole world knows that Wuhan city is not anywhere in Africa. And this tells you one thing, that the treatment, the disrespect, the physical, psychological, and any form of violence meted on Africans in China has nothing to do with COVID-19. But it has everything to do with the normalized violence that the Chinese have had on African people simply because of our skin color. And this raises a question. Do we need this relationship between China and our continent? Honestly speaking, we don't need China. Africa does not need China, but China needs Africa. The social, political, and economic rise of China has not been without Africa's support. China's presence in the UN Permanent Security Council has not been without African support. The economic prosperity of China has not been without Africa. They have siphoned our resources to the maximum. Africa hosts over 1 million Chinese citizens in its soils. The number of Chinese living in Africa is not as the same number of Africans living in China. So, anybody listening to this can pair with me that indeed Africa has been the driving force behind the rise of China, and therefore would serve something better. So, what's the way forward? To our diplomats in China, all our African diplomats associated with the Chinese embassy, we don't require to write friendly diplomatic letters to the Chinese government to treat our people well. China needs to be held accountable. China needs to be put where it belongs. China needs to stay in its corner. It's either they treat our people well, or the relationship comes to an end. It is so sad that China wants to use Africa in its quest for the global hegemonic position, but it is treating the same will with which it is driving itself to the world superpower position. It beats logic. And Africans, we don't see that. China needs us, and therefore China has to treat us with dignity and respect. If China feels that our citizens should leave their country and come to Africa, China should also know that their citizens should leave Africa and create room for our African brothers and sisters to come and stay in Africa. This relationship is supposed to be symbiotic, not parasitic. And therefore, we need to put China accountable. Diplomats associated with the Chinese embassy anywhere in Africa, tell the president of China the truth. Don't write diplomatic friendly letters telling him that he is good, that you know he is going to bring the crisis to an end. You don't need to praise him. It's like praising a father whose sons are killing the neighbor's children. The Chinese government knows that Africans are being treated with discrimination by their citizens. It's not news to them. And they have done nothing to stop the situation. So you don't need to praise the president of China to tell him that he's a good person. If this house is rotten, he is also the problem. And so you don't need to say, oh, you are a good person, treat our Africans well. No, tell him, point blank. It's either I treat our people well, or the relationship is over. We don't care about the number of loans that China has given to Africa. What we know is that the resources that China has siphoned from Africa are more than the loans that they have granted unto us. So if it comes to the worst, those resources can as well cancel the loans. So let not China use its monetary and loan ability to Africa to discriminate against our innocent brothers and sisters in China. This one has to be very clear. Africa, we need to stand on our grounds. We cannot allow colonization of Africa by China in this century. We have not yet finished handling the legacy of the 19th century colonization. So we don't want to add another Chinese colonial political economy in Africa. We don't want it. And therefore, we need to stand up. Africans, we need to stand up and put China to its space. If China wants to be the world superpower, Africa should not be the will to that position and be tampered. It is a symbiotic relationship. We benefit, they benefit. We lose, they lose. That is the thing. After all, with the eclectic theory of international relations, we are not going to go anywhere. Every state is acting as per its national interests. So Africans, we need to act as per our continental interests too. Let's not allow China colonize us. We say no to Chinese colonialism in Africa. We say no to Chinese brutality on Africans in China. We say no to Chinese dictatorship in African soils and on our African people. China, we are not happy. Thank you.